Welcome back to another episode of Changing the Perspective. Today I'm here with one of my friends, Kris Stanford. We actually met in B&I 5 or 6 years ago.
Many.
Yeah. She was doing some advertising business. I was in accounting. We met at an organized group and really just kind of knew each other from that. We didn't do a lot of hanging out. She then posted something on Facebook starting the new year that really intrigued me. I reached out. Here we are. She's going to talk about that. First off, I want to say, though, please go ahead, subscribe to our YouTube page, which is where this video is connected, or like whatever podcast service you're on. We have some amazing things coming up in the future of this podcast, and we really want you to be notified when it happens. So please hit that subscribe button and just join us on this journey as we go forward, bringing hope, inspiration, and positivity to the world around us. So, Kris, tell me kind of where this all started for you.
Well, first, thanks for asking me to do this. My first time, so a little nervous, obviously, but not my first time telling my story. And anytime I can help other people, with what I'm going through, I've always been the kind of person that, I'm an open book. People ask me questions, it's like whatever. And I've been known before to put things out there on social media because I am a writer. Mm-hmm. In what I do, I get to do copywriting, and I've taken a lot of classes on the topic, and I love to move people with my words and inspire. And one of the things that I've been in church a lot since I was 14 years old, and I was in a very conservative church for a long time where you didn't talk about your problems, mm-hmm. and you didn't talk about if you were going through things or divorce or whatever. And so it taught me not to talk about it. And what I've learned is that we really are all going through stuff, all of us. And I think it's better to talk about it and get it out there, because I feel like that's what I would have wanted back then when I was, in my early 20s and starting to have real life issues and parenting and stuff. It's like, man, everybody lives this plastic, perfect cookie cutter life, and on social media and especially in the church. And it was like, is anybody else dealing with what I'm going through? and now I feel like anymore with the church that I'm in now and the group of people I surround myself with, it is more of a real, people can be real and be themselves, and it's okay, Awesome. And so I guess what sparked this was my post, and I have been on and off of depression medication for most of my adult life. It probably started, the first medication I can remember being on was Paxil. I got diagnosed with social anxiety disorder. Mm-hmm. I was a very, very mousy, quiet person. Going out in public scared me to death, especially no public speaking. I mean, I love to sing, but to get up in front of people and sing, I was sick. Like, I wanted to be able to use that talent, because most of it, the time it was in the church or with school, but I wanted to be able to use that talent, and I just couldn't. I couldn't get past the anxiety, and so I never really did anything with singing. But just to be around people, I always was self-conscious and always thought they were talking about me or looking at me or whatever, and just a lot of issues. And I've been to counseling this last year to learn a lot of why I have had some of the issues that I've had. And so it has helped me compartmentalize it into, I'm not a depressed person. This explains why I've had these thoughts and these struggles. And I've been able to separate the two and go, okay, that makes sense. And I've always kind of liked psychology anyway. So awesome. It's helped me to, I'm really glad it took till I was 43 years old to talk to somebody, but I'm really glad I did. So a lot of it, stuff from my childhood I never dealt with that just kind of progressed into my adult life and some of the things that have happened to me along the way, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it was just too much. I just couldn't handle it. And though I got saved at 14 and I always had a relationship with God, and I honestly don't even know where I would have been without that, but it just wasn't, I just kept getting medication thrown at me and that didn't seem to help. And then something bad would happen in my life And it was always just seemed too much. Like, it was always just too much to handle. Yeah. And so, and got married at a pretty young age, and kind of skipped a whole chapter of life where people are living on their own and going to college. And I was married and had my first kid when most people are in college, and learning a lot of life lessons that I
trial and error.
That I didn't learn. I was in church, and I was learning how to be a good wife and a good mom and doing Bible studies all the time, and that was my whole life. Yeah. And so I very much lived in a little bubble for a very long time of what was really out there. And I am kind of thankful for that, because there was a lot of stuff that I was protected from once I got saved at 14. It sheltered me from a lot of poor choices that a lot of people make in those late teen and early 20s. Yeah. I never went to a bar. I never drank. Ever. Okay. And I never, I didn't put myself in some situations where, it could have done more damage, but right. So, fast forward several years, 4 kids, and then a marriage that was falling apart. That can be very traumatizing for anybody. Oh yeah. And then a lot of my counselor actually diagnosed me with PTSD. Which I didn't realize was really a thing.
Yes, it is.
Unless you're in a war or something, that's
the obvious thing.
Right. That's how most people identify with PTSD is soldiers and stuff. But really, it's anything traumatic that happens to you that continues to affect you.
Yeah. It's a trigger-based thing.
Very much. Yeah. Very much. Mm-hmm. And so after I got divorced, which was hard enough because, growing up in the church, you just don't get divorced. And so there was a lot of guilt, and there was a lot of stuff that went along with that, and the kids and everything. And so, we were together 20 years, married for 18. So that's a really long time. Yeah. And so that was hard. Ultimately my decision. And so I had a lot of guilt from that. But dating, I lived on my own for the first time ever. Because I got married so young at, 19. Yeah. So I had never lived on my own. I never really dated. I married the first guy I really dated. Yeah. Ever really dated. So it was just a whole new world. And a lot of mistakes. My self-esteem was really low. And that was the time when Tinder was really popular. Yes. And it was like, everybody kind of knows now what it's about, but I didn't. And so it was a lot of mistakes and a lot of, I remember the first Christmas that I had by myself. I had Thanksgiving, where you have to split the kids. Yes. And that was really weird for me. Yeah. And so it was very depressing. I mean, that was probably some of the darkest times I can remember was being alone without my kids for the first time. Sundays were awful. Sundays were usually church and family days. Yeah. And if I didn't have them, then I'm like, what do I do with myself? Yeah. So I remember Thanksgiving, not having him the whole time and being kind of alone the rest of the holiday because I didn't have any of my friends anymore. They were all in the church, and I don't know what happened to them, but they weren't around. And so I really didn't have a lot of people, family, when you split up, it's kind of tough. But so I had reached out and I had met a guy. I remember there's some things I remember about it, some things I don't. And a lot of people don't know this story, but I had met a guy online through one of the dating apps, and he was in Arkansas. Okay. And I don't even remember what town he's from. I don't remember his name, or I can't picture his face. But I remember we'd been talking for a while, and Christmas was coming, and I wasn't going to have the kids for Christmas Eve, but not Christmas Day. Okay. And I was afraid to be alone because of how being alone on Thanksgiving made me feel. Yeah. I was afraid of what I might do if I was alone. So he was going to be alone. I was going to be alone. He's like, come on down. We'll hang out together. And I was like, why not? I don't have anything else to do. So I remember driving there down to Arkansas, and I don't know if you've ever done the online dating, but there are times when you meet people, and as soon as you meet them, okay, this is not what I thought. This is not, you look nothing like your picture or whatever,
You weed through some crap.
Yes. So the minute I saw him, I knew no attraction, but hey, I drove all the way here. Might as well stay and we'll just be friends, you know? And so, I remember being very, very not interested at all, but we were just kind of hanging out in this apartment and he actually, drugged me.
Mm.
And it wasn't the kind of drug where it was like I blacked out, because I do remember what happened. It's just I lost all of my sense of thinking, and one thing led to another, and I spent the night, and it was horrible. It was horrible. I woke up the next morning, realized what had happened, took off immediately, and I just remember being so mad at myself for putting myself in that position. And I thought, I can't tell anybody, because what was I thinking? You know, like what I didn't even feel like I could call the cops. Although I knew if I went and got tested, something would show up and I could prosecute. Again, just like back when I was 14 and had stuck that guy in or whatever, I thought everyone's going to blame me because he shouldn't have been there. I put myself in a position I shouldn't have been in, and it led to this. And so I deserved it, is what the story I told myself.
Yeah.
And so that was probably one of the hardest things. Looking back, you know, absolutely both times definitely should have done something. And then my first relationship I was in after my divorce was an abusive relationship. Mm-hmm. And I had never dealt with that. You know, I mean, there was a lot of things I could say about my marriage, but he never laid a hand, you know, he was abusive. So and of course I thought I could save him because I pinpointed why he was the way he was, and it was a family thing or whatever, and I thought I could help him. And it was probably the longest, I think it was probably about 4 or 5 months. It was probably the longest 4 or 5 months of my life. Yes. And I was very just scared all the time, scared to death. And so that was very traumatic. To this day, I can't handle aggressive men at all. Even men that are, you know, and I deal with business owners all the time in my job, and you have to be able to deal with men that are strong and like whatever, have this presence, and that's fine. I can handle that. But the minute a man loses his temper, I go into this little shell and I'm shaking and I can't handle it. And so that had an effect on me. So all of these things, you know, the trauma from the divorce and the childhood and the abusive relationship, and then what happened in Arkansas that day, and all of these things, I always just kind of powered through them and went on with my life and didn't realize I needed to deal with them. Yeah. Until one day, you know, I can't even muscle through, I can't even get out of bed. You know, and you really can't figure out why. All I could think of was, you know, and again, you know, I'm kind of skipping around a little bit, but on and off medications, on and off. Yeah. Testing, tweaking. It wasn't, and I hadn't been on medication for a while until after my divorce, and I went to the doctor and I was sobbing, and he diagnosed me with severe depression was what it was. But the PTSD didn't come until just this last year when I spoke with a counselor, and he was like, all right, let's unpack this a little bit more, because the doctor doesn't have time to sit and listen to all of this, you know? And so anyway, he put me on medication, and it actually made me suicidal.
Oh, yes.
And I remember going back to him going, I don't think that's how this is supposed to be working. Yeah. And, you know, the suicidal thoughts and just the very, very deep, dark places that my mind went. And on the outside, everybody would have thought, oh my gosh, you know, because I was smart enough to know I'm living on my own now. Mm-hmm. I have to do this for the first time in my entire life, do this alone. Yeah. And I put my big girl pants on and I did it. But that didn't mean that when I went home at night, that I could function, because I couldn't. Right. And so I think it is because of my relationship with God, honestly, that that's the only thing I can give the credit to, honestly, that I even had a successful career and that I still even have the things that I have today. Because I understand why people turn to drugs and alcohol, because they can't deal with it. Right. You know, and it makes them feel better. But thankfully, that's not the path I was on, because I had never drank. because of, being so strict in my faith and all that. So, I have now since I've been out on my own, but and my mom, I remember growing up and my mom being on antidepressants and not really understanding what they were. And she was an alcoholic. And she had things from her childhood that she was trying to forget and stuff. And so, we all kind of deal with things, but this was the year that I kind of decided when you really take stock in your life and you look around, it's like I really don't have anything to be depressed about. Yeah. Why am I still on this medication? Why am I doing this to myself?
Right.
And even though, like I had said in my Facebook post, even though there might be a hiccup or something down the road, I just need to remember all the things that I have to be thankful for. And I think that when people struggle with suicidal thoughts, they're in a place where they have tunnel vision. They can't think of all of that. And I get it. One of the hardest things that people say that I usually just kind of sit back and I don't say anything is when they say, man, suicide is the most selfish thing you can do. And they just don't understand. And what that tells me when I hear people say that is you've never suffered with this then.
Right.
Because in that moment, you don't think you're being selfish. You think you're doing the world a favor. Mm-hmm. And you think I'll end my suffering and the suffering of everyone around me because it'll just make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And it is a very dark place to be. And, my first attempt, I wasn't really going to talk about this, but my first attempt was actually when I was 16.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And
obviously not successful.
No. And I had taken some pills.
Okay.
And luckily got intervened and went to the hospital. And anyone that's overdosed on pills, what's funny, the doctor said you usually don't ever do that twice because it's awful. They stick a tube down your throat and they pump charcoal while you're fully awake, and you're gagging on the tube, and you have to they're getting the charcoal to mix and throw up everything that you swallowed or whatever. So it's not fun. Yeah. And so it's not something that you usually ever want to do twice. But the thoughts are very scary, and it is a very dark place. And one of the things that I taught myself in some of my darkest moments over the last few years has been give it a day. I literally have even journaled about it. Yeah. But I've made a promise to myself to give it a day because I know the way I feel right now, it's going to pass. Yeah. And I wouldn't recommend that for everybody because maybe it doesn't pass after a day. But for me, that was kind of a promise I made to myself. You may feel that way right now, but tomorrow you probably won't. Yeah. And you will have made the biggest mistake of your life. Right. And end game over. Yeah. So I think that with looking at just everything I have to be thankful for, I don't know if you've ever heard of Veggie Tales. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the cartoons. Yeah. I used to play those for my kids when they were little. My son. And one of the songs that always stuck with me was A Thankful Heart is a Happy Heart. And, I sing it. I can hear it in my head. Thankful heart is a happy heart. Just be thankful what you have. That's an easy way to start. And it's true, and if you do focus on what you have to be thankful for, then the other stuff just kind of fades away, and it's just circumstantial, and it's just all little stuff. And looking back over my depression, it it is people will argue it is a chemical imbalance, and it is really a thing. Yes, a medical diagnosis and a thing. And I don't want to belittle anybody's. This is just my story, but I really can link things that were going on in my life to my dark thoughts. Yeah. The divorce, what happened after that, not being with my kids, the shame of all of those things that had happened to me building up and not even realizing that's what it was. Yeah. So, that's a lot all at once there, but.
So you now are engaged.
Yes.
How did he handle, as you were dating, you kind of going through the whole getting to know each other stage, and obviously you would have had to tell him, I've kind of had some of this stuff, and this is how I deal with things. How has he handled everything? Is there something that you guys do together to help when you get into a spot, or what?
Oh man, poor him. No, he more than anything, he has to deal with my mood swings. Honestly, but that comes with age anyway. You know, women. But you know, he's just been very supportive. I haven't told him everything.
Okay.
I think it's a lot for him to even handle.
Yeah.
As a provider and a protector, for him to hear some of the things that I've been through, I think is he'll listen, but he doesn't want to camp out there. He wants to just move on. He wants to say, all right, yes, you dealt with that. Let's move on. And that, again, is harder, a lot easier said than done, you know. Yeah. And that was one of the things my counselor said was, I think one of the reasons why he doesn't want to camp out and hear it over and over and over again is because he can't do anything about it. He wasn't there.
He can't fix it. And
he doesn't want to see you in pain. Yeah. And so that's another thing to think about when you have loved ones that don't know what to do. A lot of times it's that they just don't, they love you so much and they don't want to see you in pain and they can't fix it. They don't know they really don't know what to do. But he has been great. He's been very supportive. More than anything, just a constant, like stable, steady. He's not an emotional guy, so he doesn't fly off the handle and freak out and stuff. And that's been very, you know, I've told many people this, that like I think God put him with me because I couldn't handle. He knew exactly who I could handle. He knew I needed somebody gentle. He's a gentle giant is what he is. He's just very gentle. Yeah. And, you know, we've been together now. I didn't rush. We're not rushing into this. It's been, you know, over 3 years now since we've been dating. Right. And so it's been very refreshing, and it's calming, and it's great.
That's awesome.
You know.
I also am a victim of PTSD from narcissistic abuse. So it's a lot of mental type triggers for me. I know my family and my husband have had to learn that when those triggers set off, sometimes I don't even know they're there.
Yeah.
And they've had to learn kind of how to go, okay, hold up. This isn't a me situation. This is a past situation. So they've had to learn to kind of handle me a little bit when that happens. Do you feel like they kind of have to go, whoa, mom, or whoa, you know, like, Kris, chill out for a second? Do you feel like that ever happens to you with that PTS trigger function?
Well, it's a new diagnosis. I don't even know that I've shared it with my girls. Okay. There are times I've had to, after the fact, go back and apologize to my son or whatever, or say, hey, I just flipped out there for no reason.
I have to do that too.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. I remember we went and watched when the movies first started and they reopened in the theater. Oh, we love going to the movies. Mm-hmm. And the very first time the Alamo Draft House had opened back up, I was there. I bought tickets to surprise him, and I didn't really even do research on the movies. I picked a movie. It had Russell Crowe in it. I thought, this is going to be good. It's got Russell Crowe, and it's suspense and whatever. And we get there and we're watching it, and it's called Unhitched, and it's he plays a very deranged man. I don't know if you've done any research on the film, but he's very good at his part. Russell Crowe he's very big now. He's a very big man, large, scary man, and that's what he does in this movie. It's a movie about road rage, and he goes after this woman, and he doesn't let up, and he's just very scary. And I was coming unglued in my chair, and he didn't even realize what was happening. And I was crying, and I almost had to get up and leave. And I'm like, dude, what do I do? And that's when I decided to reach out to my counselor and say, okay, what is going on here? And I have everything I need. Why does this stuff start? Why am I even thinking about this? Why does watching something on TV bother me so much to where I have to leave the room and I can't deal with it, you know? And then for the next week, I'm in this bad mood, and I can't get out of bed and whatever. And so he was able to help me unpack that and took me through the questions and the testing and said, you've got some PTSD But honestly, there is a treatment for PTSD that you can go through. But even just knowing that that's what it was such a relief for me.
Yeah.
Because I had suicidal thoughts, and I had been suffering and going through all this, and I thought, that's not who I am. Yeah. You know, like I'm a pretty happy person by nature, but it helped me separate the two. Say, okay, I'm not a suicidal person, but PTSD causes that. Mm-hmm. Makes you have those thoughts.
Yeah.
Another thing that he said is a symptom of PTSD, and I'm trying to think of the wording he used. It was unreasonable guilt and shame that you put on yourself. And he said, when you didn't tell on your family member, when you didn't tell on the person who raped you, you blamed yourself.
Right.
You blamed yourself when you went to that guy's house. You blamed yourself when, you left your marriage, even though it took two people to ruin that marriage. You took all the burden on yourself and said, well, because I'm the one leaving, I'm the one that ruined everything. And that was a lot, and the abusive relationship I was in, I never told anybody. I never tried to people knew, but I never turned him in. I never whatever, because I thought, I'm the idiot that picked him. That's what I get,
Right.
And so all of these things, that's even a part of PTSD is when but think of all the burden that puts on somebody when you take all of that hurt and all of that shame and you put it on your own shoulders and you blame yourself.
But yeah, it becomes a complete lack of trust in your own ability at all.
Oh, yeah. Like your own sound judgment. Like I just quit dating for a while.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't obviously make a sound decision. And I told my friend, I said, do not let me make any dating decisions without your approval. And I said, because I clearly don't know what I'm doing. But going back to, the guy that I'm with now, I really do feel like God said, all right, she's learned enough. Because, you're learning lessons as you go through all of this. Right. And I did. And one of the things that Andy Stanley talks about, and I don't also think I could have made it through without his podcasts. He is he's a great speaker. He's a pastor in, I believe, Atlanta, but he has an app that you can download, and I was watching two of his sermons earlier, and it's cool because they don't really feel like sermons. They're more just like just teachings, and I take quite a bit of time to get ready, and it's relaxing, and I'll just sit and listen and learn as I'm getting ready. And one of the things that he taught me was everybody that goes through things, they'll say, anytime you're going from one thing to another, whether it be you lost a job and you have to start a new job, or it's a new marriage, or it's, whatever, people will say, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? And they'll just move on. And they'll say, what was I thinking? Let's go on another date. Or what was I thinking? Let's do this again. And they don't take long enough to camp out on that question. And you really do deserve an answer to that question. If you don't figure that out, you're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over and over.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I have taught myself to do discipline-wise, is when I do find myself going from, when I do want to make sure that next time doesn't end up like last time, whatever it is, ask yourself, what was I thinking? Yeah. What led me to, he said something like, well, I don't know, I was just dating a jerk. He's like, well, why did you date a jerk? You got to figure that out, or you're going to date another jerk.
Yeah.
And so that's been one thing that's kind of really helped in my decision making, processes anyway. And because a lot of the things that have happened to me in my life, I did put myself there. And even though that's not my fault that those things happened, if you make those better choices, then you won't be in those situations.
Yeah.
So
funny.
Yeah. That works.
I think sometimes it's a little bit about punishing yourself though too. Mm-hmm. You make some choices a little bit sabotaging yourself, knowing I need to punish myself for those bad decisions I made already. Well, that's not fair either. At some point you have to learn to forgive the bad choices you made in the past and just continue moving forward. And that is a hard thing to do. Mm-hmm. Hard thing to do. You talk about this. I went to work and I had this image, I had it together, and then I came home and I fell apart. I think a lot of people do that. What do you feel is the best thing to keep you from doing that now? What things help you?
Well, it does help to have a support system, But I don't want to get too reliant on people.
Yeah.
Because at any time, if something were to happen to Jared or any one of my kids, you know what I mean? I don't want to fall back into that, sucked back into this depression mode where I can't get out of bed. That's just the worst. I don't know if you've ever dealt with that, but it's better. I guess it's better than finding your security at the bottom of a bottle, but you know, not being able to get out of bed in the morning it's tough, and to be able to have a career and still be that way, it's like, But I don't know. I guess just the perspective that it's all about perspective. Yeah. It really is. And I talked about it in my post on Facebook, but this last year I actually lost a friend to suicide. Yeah. And it's probably the first person I've ever lost that I was close to. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know people.
Right.
Everybody knows people.
Right.
But to have somebody really close to you do that I was really friends with,
yes,
it's hard. Yeah. And, you know.
And I should say, one of the coolest people ever. Like, you thought he had it together.
Yes.
All the time. He was the most friendly and outgoing person when you ever met him face to face.
He was always uplifting. I worked with him for a while, and it was like every day you looked forward to seeing him because he was going to say something that built you up. Yeah. He would always compliment you, like, oh my gosh, you look great today, or oh, you killed that sale, or you whatever you did, you did so well. And he was always building other people up, and you had no idea that he was suffering. And that's why I wanted to say what I said. One of the reasons why I wanted to go public with my issues, even though hopefully I'm on the other side of it now. We'll see. Right. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. But is because once somebody's gone, it's too late.
Yeah.
Everybody says, man, I had no idea. I just had no idea they were suffering. And they didn't feel like they could talk about it. Mm-hmm. And by then it's too late.
Right.
And I know I've seen some posts from some of my friends on Facebook where they just look like they're really depressed. They've even said it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, like, do you know you're not alone?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea? And even since I posted what I did, other people have come forward and said, man, me too. Yeah. And I'm like, thank you. Yes. Thank you for that. Even helps me just hearing that it's not just me, and that somebody that appears to have it all together and is a very strong person can have this like thing going on that we just all know nothing about. And I think, we all need to take time to really just love each other and love on each other and get to know people deeper than we do.
Yes.
And get past, because, just like you and I consider you a friend, it was very surface level.
Right.
You had no idea. You would have no idea.
No.
And
no. Especially in a business environment.
No, you don't talk about stuff like that.
No.
How are you doing? Oh, well, I'm glad you asked.
Let's see.
Last night, you just don't talk about stuff like that. And I think we should. I do. Yeah. I do think maybe not in that environment, but I do think that human connection is so important. Yes. And we were built for it. We were made for it. God created us for it. And it's when we isolate ourselves, which is what you do when you're depressed. You don't want to be a burden on other people.
Right. Which
is one of the biggest things I struggled with was I don't want to, that Thanksgiving and that Christmas, I had people inviting me over, but I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to, that's your family Christmas, not my family.
Yeah.
I'm not going to come over, You don't want to be a burden on other people, but you need to let other people love on you. You need to share your story, and that's why I put on there, man, if you're going through some stuff, you've got to talk.
Yeah.
Because I know places mentally where I've been over the last, say, 10 years where, man, if it had been game over for me at that point, I can't even tell you how thankful I am that I didn't, that I didn't do that. My friend that had taken his life, I had no clue, and I wish I had.
Yeah.
And I shared this picture on Facebook of this tattoo. I'm not a tattoo person.
Yeah.
I think they're great on other people. They're not for me. But this particular person was a huge tattoo person
Yes.
all over,
Yes.
everywhere. And
they all had meaning of
yes,
some form.
every one of them. And
Yeah.
he would always try to talk me into getting one. When are you going to get one?
Yeah.
You know, or whatever. Like, oh, I just don't know of a reason. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to put the Hawkeyes on me. I don't know. I love the Hawkeyes, but am I always going to love the Hawkeyes? So it was this last year. I guess there's a National Suicide Awareness or Prevention or whatever
Yes.
month and day. And I was sitting watching TV, and I didn't even realize the next day was the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh my gosh. And I was like, I'm gonna, and I knew the semicolon was a symbol of that, awareness. And I thought, you know what a perfect time to get a tattoo in his memory.
Yep.
And so he actually had worked, when he left working with us, he went to a tattoo shop.
Yeah.
And worked there for a while until COVID hit.
Yep.
And then was laid off. But I decided to go to, and it's just freak, because this was like 8 o'clock at night. I realized I was going to do this. I reached out to them and I'm like, do you have any openings? Which is rare that they would. And I found this picture online. Could you do this? And it's just a butterfly with, it's a semicolon butterfly.
Yeah.
And it's also symbolic that I did it on my wrist.
Okay.
You know, because that's a lot of times where people will go.
Yeah.
And then I had his initials hidden in the wings.
Oh, cool.
You can't really tell they're there, but I know they're there. And it's just a great reminder.
That's awesome.
And every single day I see that and I remind myself that I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor. And I don't know.
You
I
had
just
to put
thought
the Wu-Tang thing in there anyway.
No,
It's probably what you should have done.
No, I should have. But it's probably the only one I'll ever get.
Yes.
But at least it actually had a meaning, a really good meaning.
I love
it keeps, his memory alive, but it also reminds me of where I've been and everything I have to live for and to be thankful for. Yeah. And I just decided, I don't know what effects the medication that I've been on has had on my body. I've heard people come forward messaging me saying, do you have any idea what that does to you? I don't know. Yeah. I just know that I don't want to be dependent on it the rest of my life. Yeah. And I really don't have anything to be depressed about. Yeah. And I really just need to look at what I have and be thankful for that. And it's really just a choice. It just really is a choice. Yeah. And I'm not saying depression is a choice or not a choice, because it definitely is. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, chemical imbalance or whatever. Right. But for me personally, because of what happened with him and just taking, like you do at the end of the year, you start thinking back, what do I need to change and what do I need to do? And I never thought this was going to be one of those things, because when you're on it, you just think you're always going to be on it.
Right.
I thought, you know what? I'm done. I really don't have a reason to even be depressed. And I've always said I'm not a depressed person. It's my circumstances. Yeah. But if we all looked hard enough, we could find a reason to be depressed.
100%.
We could find a reason to if we wanted to. Mm-hmm. And that's never really been my nature, to play the victim. So I'm like, I'm done with it. I'm done. Yeah. So that's kind of.
When I feel like in that world, we've all struggled with a form of depression, and not from a full chemical imbalance, but from something tragic happened and there's a whole week of crazy that you sometimes can't recall certain things. I think there's a difference in giving yourself permission to have a couple bad days than living in it and wallowing in it, which creates other rabbit holes of darkness. Right. And getting the counselor to help you realize, it's okay to have that bad day, and it's okay to live in that bad day, but you cannot just hang out there for the rest of your life, or your world is not going to be the same. And having a counselor or professional that can walk you through that was a game changer for me, at least. I have not been diagnosed depressed. But when I got out of a bad situation, there were weeks and months that everything hurt. Not physically, but sometimes mentally, small decisions, it didn't matter. Everything hurt, and I couldn't figure out, why can I not find some positivity out of this? Right. I know it's a good thing, but I feel like it's a horrible thing. But it was a positive thing. I could never figure it out. And I had a counselor that had to go, okay, like, let's sort this out. Let's actually dissect it, one thing or whatever. So I think having a professional in this situation, in any situation that you're past a couple of days of having a bad day, if you're going into weeks and months, getting help is, I would think, a huge thing.
Right.
And obviously it's become a great thing for you.
Yeah. And I can honestly say, and I'm not suggesting this for everybody, but I'm not even, it's my personality style. I know it is, but I'm not even still talking to that counselor.
Yeah.
Like, just hearing that was enough for me to move on. Like, oh, you mean all of these things? It's not just me. I'm not, it's not me. It's this PTSD. And then I did research on PTSD and what it meant. And that took me down a couple days of research. And I'm like, that's exactly what it's been. It's been this whole time. The decisions, my past, and this is another thing Andy Stanley has taught me, is that my past can inform me, but it does not define me.
Yeah.
And, I was dealing with issues I didn't even know I was dealing with. I was dealing with problems from my childhood, and I've heard people talk about them before, and I'm like, oh, just get over it, just get over it, but they bother you, and you don't even know that that's what's bothering you, and I have a vision of who you want to be, okay, and I've always just told myself, well, that's who you are, just be that person, but that doesn't fix all the stuff behind the scenes, and it doesn't make it easy, and I do think that everything that's happened this past year, and COVID even, and being, at home and away from other people, and missing other people, and missing all of those things, it's like you do realize that we took it for granted, and I'm just very thankful. I have a lot to be, I've listed them all out on my face, all the things I have to be thankful for, and I'm like, really, on the grand scheme of things, I mean, my story could have ended a lot differently.
100%.
It could have. I could have been one of those people that we were talking about earlier that never bounced back from it. They're just alcohol. They turn to alcohol and drugs, and I'm even sympathetic of those people because I understand. I understand not wanting to be present in your own life, and that's why they turn to those things. And I am very thankful that I don't have to deal with that on top of everything else. So,
what advice do you have for people going through kind of what you've experienced? Like, they're in that right now.
I think a lot of depression and anxiety, and I have both, have had both, comes from fear.
Okay. The
fear of the unknown, the fear of being accepted. I mean, it's everybody's is different, but a lot of mine was fear.
Okay.
And some good advice that I heard from somebody else through this podcast that I've watched is just stop worrying and live your life. Andy did a one-on-one with a guy with ALS, and he had this terminal disease, and he knew he was going to die, and he sat down and just had a very candid, open conversation with him. The guy was very open about it, and he said, what advice do you have for us, knowing what knowing how this ends, what would you tell us? And my advice would be the very same thing, because I think it was great advice, and that would be stop worrying and live your life.
Yeah.
The things that you think are important, if you were in my shoes, you would realize they're not important.
Yeah.
And the things that I worried about, the struggles that I thought I had, the things that were bothering me, even our past. So many people get caught up on the things that happen to them, and I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. You do have to deal with those things. But all of those things that happened to me, those people that did those things to me, they couldn't make it better even if they wanted to. So how can I hold them accountable and let it affect me still today over something that they couldn't change it? You know what I mean? They couldn't, even if they apologized to me, that wouldn't make it not happen. Those memories, those triggers, those things, it already happened. Right. They couldn't pay that debt even if they wanted to. So is it fair to hold them accountable to it?
Right.
You know, I have to let it go, you know, and I think a lot of people, that's hard for a lot of people. You know, they hold on to that anger and they don't realize they're enslaving themselves to that for the rest of their lives until they just let go.
Right.
So I had to learn to let them off the hook, and I had to learn to let myself off the hook, which is sometimes the hardest thing, is forgiving yourself, like we talked about. Yeah. And so those are some, I guess my advice would be, those people that have wronged you, and we all have them. We all have them.
Yeah.
It's the people in our lives that have done things to us. Forgive them. They don't have to be a part of it. Just forgive them. Forgive yourself. And stop worrying and live your life. Because if I were diagnosed with the disease that I knew I was going to die in a month or even a year, my perspective would be so different. And the little things that trip us up day to day, and the things that have been bothering me, and the things that, like, all that already happened. Like, it's not happening to me right now. It's already happened. Yeah. You know, like, I certainly wouldn't let my last month of living or year of living be thinking about them or what they did or what happened back then, because I'm an overcomer. I have overcome it already. I don't need to live there. Yeah. So
my counselor said, stop giving energy to places that don't matter anymore. Stop giving them your energy, because I was wasting a lot of time spinning my wheels giving people energy that didn't matter. Like, that's ridiculous. But at the time, that's all I knew to do.
Right.
So,
yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
I think you coming forward on Facebook was awesome. I think you deciding to do this, I totally appreciate. My goal of all of this is to help even just one person get in a better place, or maybe the one person that's considering committing suicide, they don't, because they realize I'm not alone and I've got this. And I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Doing this. Any last words you want to say? Or
no, just that, you know, my door's open, you know, if any of my friends hear this that know me or whatever, and they want to reach out to me. That was one of the things that I put on Facebook with even a certain couple people in mind that I noticed have been putting some pretty dark things on their pages. Like, hey, just talk to me. Yeah. I'm here. Yeah. Nobody knows you don't know somebody's story. You really don't. No. I mean, even recently I've heard some stories of people, the things that they dealt with in childhood, and I'm like, you mean it wasn't just me? You know, I wasn't the only one that had, you know, terrible things happen to them, you know? And I think, how else are we supposed to get better if we don't have other people coming along? That's how God uses us. You know, all of that stuff probably happened to me so that he could use me. Yeah. You know, all things work together for the good or whatever. And if I can help anybody with my story, then it was worth it.
Well, and you may have a couple friends come forward that you're saving their life, legitimately saving their life. Yeah. And I think that'll be amazing if that happens.
Yeah. That'd be good.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us again. Thank Kris for being a part of this. I am super proud of you sitting here, telling your story. I know it was probably hard. Again, if you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe to our social media pages. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, all under Changing the Perspective. We're also on several podcast posts, which if you like our Facebook page, they're all listed there. We really are excited about what we're bringing to you, hopefully able to bring some things that people can relate to and find commonality in the story. Please subscribe, join us on the journey. I hope everyone had an amazing week this week. I hope you're going into a wonderful weekend and enjoying some time with family and friends, and we'll see you next time.